Hi, so welcome, folks. Yeah, welcome to you all. Um, Last week, I wore what I consider my nicest shirt. It was a gift. It's made in Italy. And Debbie asked if I was wearing my pajamas. And no, I was not. But today, I've worn a very non-pajama shirt for the people, you know. So that's how I'm doing. I got a message today. Interesting things come into my voicemail uh, sometimes, and there's a friend. So I thought uh, is a long time meditator and somebody who he kind of lives inside a Dharma talk would be how I would characterize it. Like he just lives inside a Dharma talk, either giving it to himself or some imagined audience or a real person or something. But this is what came in on the voicemail. I was actually sitting here meditating and I had this profound experience. I was suddenly like, I could talk to Matthew about this. So give me a call. I'll just tell you my thing real quick. Okay. It's this it's when you're present. And I've noticed how much on a deep level my mind is future based. And of course, all humans think about the future. Sure, definitely. But like relating to what's happening now and truly not relating to it vis-a-vis in any way towards the future. Meaning like, even if I'm sitting, there's a part of me that's like, this is a good sit. This will serve me in the future. It's a good thing. Like if I'm liberated, I'll be happier in the future. Like this is good for me. I'll be whatever. You know what I mean? Like even the most benevolent, non-egotistical ways of trying to like hold on to the future, it's still very much in relationship to the future. I've been hitting the state recently once in a while where it's like, no, no, really, there's no future. Like, like really. There's no future as far as how this moment is experienced. And it's just crazy after whatever, 30 years, 35 years of practice to be kind of coming up with, hey, yeah, it's really just about being here now. Anyway, man, thought you'd get a kick out of that. All right. Love you. Miss you. Hope to talk to you soon. So let us sit. It is good for you, but good for you is not here, not now. What is actually here now. Idea, this is good for me. That might be here, but good for me at some point is not here. What's here? We can only live one moment at a time. Love takes us here. Hatred takes us there. Just opening our heart to what's here. Just this breath, this body, constellation of sensations. Call this body. How long is now? Future feels like it's here, feels like it's bound up in the potential energy of what is here, bound up in thought and expectation, prediction and imagination, bound up in the ways we try to track the trajectory of what is here in terms of what will be here. But all of that is just happening now. Creating the illusion that we might ever be anywhere else. How much courage or love or skill or something might it take to renounce becoming just for now? And just because the future keeps coming doesn't mean that in this moment it's not an illusion. After all these years, here, now, opening to the bottomlessness of the present, kind of perverse logic of this whole realm that there's only freedom for those who aren't trying to get free. Thank you. Um, so I got a question about working with rumination and intrusive thinking. And a friend of mine taught a retreat with Byron Katie and described how steadfast she was in locating the cause and the expression of our suffering in our thinking. You know, her kind of famous line, "Who would you be without your story?" And that question stops at least some suffering in its tracks. Suffering kind of needs a name and form to be truly suffering. But the Dharma also It's transmitted through language, at least partially, celebrates contemplation, celebrates wise thought, celebrates insight and learning. And much of what we do in our Dharma practice actually to give ourselves highly tailored, precise pep talks and reminders, call in certain moments, certain signs, certain phrase or something to remind us what we need to remember. Michelle McDonald said, sort of like teasing about our antagonistic relationship to thought, said, you wouldn't plug your ears with cotton to get enlightened. So why would you try to do that with your mind? So perhaps we can say that thinking is a double-edged sword. But we do ask our thoughts to do a lot, some reasonable, maybe some too much, to game out and protect us from uncertainty. We use or ask our thoughts to help us digest painful experience, to make us feel good about ourselves, to provide us meaning. But rumination gives thinking a bad name. In rumination, we're truly asking too much from our thoughts, asking them to do too much. And rumination, maybe we can say, is that particular species of thinking that tries to accomplish with words what can only be done with action and wisdom and silence. So we should first know and appreciate that practice, like lavishing this Dharma attention will tend to amplify the noise of our mind, including rumination. We want the signal, but we hear the noise. But actually listening to the noise is the signal. Deeply listening to the noise is the signal. We start to hear the Dharma. The Dharma is in the contour of our thought, not its content, as Shinzen would often say. So rumination, this kind of repetitive, often intrusive, prolonged, negative thinking about oneself and feelings, concerns, upsetting experience, memory. And it's prominent in depression and some anxiety disorders, but it's generally considered like a transdiagnostic construct, meaning that its rumination is elevated across a wide range of psychological suffering conditions. And rumination is, I don't know, it sort of feels like, okay, looking for the last missing puzzle piece, except you're playing chess. Like that fantasy of, I could just find that last piece, I complete this, solve the riddle. That's not the game. So sometimes rumination masquerades as a kind of sincere existential curiosity, but it's not that. It sounds like we're asking maybe important questions about meaning and love and connection, but it's not that. Rumination magnifies and prolongs existing negative moods. It interferes actually with effective problem solving, even though it's chewing, trying to solve. reduces sensitivity. One of the research findings, it reduces sensitivity to changing conditions and context. Maybe we can say that rumination is the kind of the truest kind of thinking. It's complete identification with thought. In other words, the least amount of metacognitive awareness where we know thinking as thinking in rumination, the thoughts or the realest thing in the world. And rumination feels like almost like the words can move the world, change the conditions of past and future. And in obsessional, intrusive thinking, the content of the thought is often the difference between terribleness and okayness. Sometimes we have a kind of intrusive memory, rumination about the past. And rumination is often how we try to digest egoically stimulating events. And the affect is so heightened that we're trying to soothe the feeling with words, but the words don't usually work so well. And the wounds of the past are not so much healed by language, but by love and patience and tolerance of feeling. And our mind, in the mind that's in pain, it desperately wants to come to conclusions, but we try to stay wordless. We try to, at least for this moment, renounce words as our primary coping method. And yeah, there are liberating stories. A liberating narrative is the end point, but it's not the starting point of feeling better. We have to feel our way into a liberating story, into liberating words, an empowered way of understanding. But we can't write that story until we've renounced words and felt our way through the past. So we tend to think compulsively about the undigested past because we're afraid what the past means about us, about our future. And the sense of there are secrets bound up in that pain. They mean something about me. They mean something about the future. But the secrets bound up in pain cannot be coaxed out by words, but silence. So we sit still. Rumination seems like entanglement, seems like the opposite of avoidance. Um, we're chewing, chewing, chewing. That seems like the opposite of avoidance, but there's usually a thread of avoidance. And even though rumination is so painful, it's less painful than something else. What is it less painful than? Can we be awake to that? Open our heart to that. Other times, ruminations about the future, trying sometimes to outsmart the first noble truth, that there is suffering. And it's like, okay, we can see options A, B, and C. Oh, yeah, those include suffering. What about D? Is D on the list, And no. Anxiety is often described as the intolerance of uncertainty. And when we meet uncertainty, we're desperate for information that might reduce the uncertainty. And so we burrow into our thinking. I want this uncertainty reduced. Information reduces uncertainty. Can I go forage for some information in my thinking? But that's not actually information. That's not data. It's noise. And our ruminative thinking is so thin, the stories emerging out of it so concocted. And we kind of know that. And so we're dissatisfied. We can sense the dissatisfaction, and doubt becomes a disease. Equanimity makes us less afraid. And part of the desperation to find a way out with our thinking is the sense that certain futures cannot be handled. Equanimity is a kind of confidence that may hurt, but it will not harm my heart. There's a scientific finding that in rumination, kind of salience network of the brain, sort of like detecting motivationally important internal and external stimuli. The salience network is over engaged. Maybe we could say things that don't matter so much register as really mattering. We're mistaking the noise for the signal, caring about the wrong things. We don't have to cease caring, but we want to refine what we care about, what is worth wanting. And so as we get activated by things that don't matter as much as they feel like they do in that moment, we practice developing tranquility. And in tranquility, the stickiness of thought is reduced. It's like hyperarousal demands potent storytelling, meaning making. And when we get still, thought has less value, it's less salient. Sometimes, just maybe the last thing to say, sometimes rumination is how we kind of punish ourselves while delaying action. We know we need to act, we don't want to do it. And we kind of buy ourselves some time by stewing. But sometimes mind states can only be broken by clear action. And sometimes we have to act even though we don't feel ready. But it's actually some wise action that breaks the cycle of internal spin. So offer this for whatever it may be worth. And thank you for your attention, and be back next week. Yeah, good to be with you.